While Ecuador impressed greatly in CONMEBOL qualifying with their young squad, there's an ongoing battle between Ecuador and Chile, as they believe that one of the players of this Ecuador side was actually ineligible to represent the country in qualifying. Hey guys, and welcome to Rabona TV. Given it's an international break, let's do an international video, no? And if you're new around here and you appreciate the content and enjoy watching it, then why not subscribe for free? We're going to have a ton of World Cup coverage once the tournament comes around, so stay a while. Get comfortable, my friend. Speaking of coverage, we got to thank our sponsors for this video, OneFootball. So fellas, once you have OneFootball downloaded to your phone, more on that later, you're going to want to go in and follow all of the teams and competitions, such as the 2022 World Cup that you care the most about. From there, your homepage will be populated with articles and interviews that you care about. They also have a video section with highlights, interviews, and behind-the-scenes videos on top of transfer trackers and the ability to actually watch matches within the OneFootball app. It's a one-stop shop, man. So use the link in the description or scan this QR code because we live in the future and get your free download of OneFootball today so that you can stay in the know with the latest breaking news from around the football world. Gracias, OneFootball. CONMEBOL qualifying is crazy. I mean, the quality of teams that you have concentrated into a single qualification league, basically of just 10 teams, all fighting for one of 4 direct qualification spots while the 5th place team plays an interconfederation playoff. I mean, it gets hectic, and there is always a notable side that doesn't make the cut. Just look at this rendition standings. Chile and Colombia didn't even make it into the top 5. Those are big names. Every single one of your 18 matches counts in qualification, and Chile have built a reputation now for fighting the authorities when they feel like another team has had an unfair advantage when it comes to the registration of their players. Well, it's seen as an unfair advantage in some cases, or Chile have just become the narcs of CONMEBOL. The feds. Back during the 2018 World Cup qualification campaign, Chile put in a petition against a Bolivian player named Nelson Cabrera, who was born in Paraguay, grew up in Paraguay, and received Bolivian citizenship, but hadn't met the requisite amount of time to be living in Bolivia in order to meet FIFA's requirements of having lived in a country for 5 years before representing their national team. You'll want to remember this for later, by the way, it's huge. So given Cabrera appeared as a substitute regularly in Bolivia's 2018 qualification campaign, after Chile disputed this with the powers that be, the matches that Cabrera had appeared in were given as 3-0 wins to the opponents of Bolivia. Chile's 0-0 draw was turned into a 3-0 win, but it also benefited Peru a lot, as they had a 2-0 loss reverted into a 3-0 win. Now what's funny about that situation in particular, in a sort of Schadenfreude kind of way at least, Chile's dispute actually benefited Peru more so than themselves, as it put Peru into a playoff spot while Chile finished just behind them. Well, Chile and Peru are at it again, mostly Chile, as they now look to tackle Ecuador for a similar reason. Ecuador has really impressed the world. Well, if the world isn't paying attention yet, they have at least really impressed in South America. With a young team comprised of incredibly talented players, they stormed to a 4th place finish to directly qualify for the 2022 World Cup ahead of Peru in 5th, again, and Colombia in 6th. Chile, they're even worse than last time, as the 2015 and 16 South American champions have failed to qualify for the World Cup yet again. They were in 7th. But they're going to try to get there on a technicality still, as they are now targeting a player that they believe was ineligible for Ecuador. That player being Byron Castillo, who currently plays for Club León in Mexico. Castillo appeared in 8 matches for Ecuador during their qualification cycle, twice versus Chile, which is important. But he has been the subject of a bit of controversy for some time now. Citizenship controversy, that is. Maybe the most boring kind of controversy. Back in 2018, an internal investigation conducted by Ecuador's Football Federation, FEF, looked into Castillo's Ecuadorian citizenship and discrepancies regarding both his real name and age and birthplace. Now, the Daily Mail's Matt Hughes managed to get his hands on some evidence from the 2018 investigation by the FEF, which has now been at the center of Chile's appeal surrounding Byron Castillo. I've linked to Hughes' article below if you want to look at all of the evidence for yourself. During the 2018 internal investigation from the FEF, an interview was conducted with Castillo in which he explained everything. Castillo was actually born in Colombia in 1995, just across the border from Ecuador, in a city called Tumaco, as mentioned on his Colombian birth certificate, as you can see here. However, Castillo also has an Ecuadorian birth certificate, and that he wasn't born in 95, but in 98. There is evidence to support this, including the audio of Castillo explaining everything to the internal investigators. Castillo explains what his real name is versus what is written on his Ecuadorian birth certificate, as well as his real birth year, who helped him to organize all of the Ecuadorian papers, etc. On top of this, Chile also have images from the official FEF investigation, which gives a detailed breakdown of Castillo's situation and evidence and the logic behind their ruling. The ruling from the lead investigator for FEF being that there are many irregularities that need to be looked at. However, FEF didn't seem to take any sort of action in order to sort this out. On top of this, the Chile FA have ensured that the birth certificates for Castillo were verified, as his Colombian birth certificate was verified by the National Birth Registry of Colombia, while his Ecuadorian birth certificate was in fact not verified. On top of this, as Hughes writes, in addition, the signature of his father, Herenson Jose Castillo, in the Ecuadorian document does not correspond to the signature in the Colombian document. In 2018, a report from the General Director of the Civil Register in Ecuador declared that Castillo's Ecuadorian birth certificate did not exist in its internal records and concluded it was false. And so, with all of this evidence, what's happened regarding Chile's appeal to FIFA? The first hearing happened back in June of this year, and the ruling for FIFA's disciplinary committee was that Castillo's situation was not one that is not necessarily in breach of any of FIFA's rules surrounding players representing a country that they weren't born in. Remember, for FIFA, all you need is to have lived in a country for a minimum of 5 years and to have citizenship of said country in order to represent them at the international level. This was repeated by the FIFA Appeals Committee in mid-September of 2022, and thus there seems to be no issues with Castillo representing Ecuador's national team in FIFA's eyes. FIFA said that they had closed proceedings against Ecuador and that they, quote, deemed that on the basis of the documents presented, the player was to be considered a holding permanent Ecuadorian nationality in accordance with the country's legal statutes. Despite having their case and their appeal turned down by FIFA, this isn't necessarily the end of the road for Chile and Ecuador. What Chile is leaning on heavily would be this: the fact that Ecuador's own football federation had an internal investigation that pointed out plenty of irregularities in Castillo's documentation, from his real name to his birth date, and Ecuador didn't do anything about it and tried to cover it up. Why? I think from their point of view, he had lived in Ecuador for the requisite amount of time in order to get permanent residency or citizenship and thus represent the country, and so no further action was taken. Chile would argue that further action should have been taken, as he has a verified Colombian birth certificate, but Ecuador's civil office has not verified his Ecuadorian birth certificate. And so if his citizenship was awarded on inaccurate or knowingly falsified documents, even if he has lived there for a long time, his documents are in fact inaccurate or false themselves. Therefore, Chile is now taking this case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, as they believe they have plenty of legal footing in order to win this case and potentially replace Ecuador at the 2022 World Cup. However, the resistance from FIFA is strong, as they are already selling thousands of tickets to Ecuador supporters, and their presence at the World Cup is already assumed in the eyes of FIFA. I mean, there are just 8 weeks to go until the tournament kicks off, and who plays that first match against the host Qatar? Ecuador, of course. So Chile's General Secretary of their Football Federation, Jorge Jung, has said, quote, the Chilean FA confirms it will be appealing the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport as soon as it has received the full written reasons for the decision from FIFA. Typically, any matters that involve hearings in court are long and drawn-out processes, but CAS has the ability to conduct a rush hearing within the next few weeks, and if it goes how Chile expects it to, that will be a massive headache for FIFA. With less than 2 months until the World Cup kicks off in Qatar, it will be yet another difficult moment for FIFA to get over in what has been a tournament known for controversy even before a ball has been kicked. So guys, definitely keep an eye out for this news. If something big comes out from the Court of Arbitration from Sport, then I will of course have a video update for you. We'll see what happens here, man. I can see it going in either direction. Anyways guys, thanks for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, then remember, subscribe. Stick around and drop a like to feed the algorithm. Other than that, my name's Adrian, and I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.